Welcome back to our series on politics and climate in California. This is episode 11, and today we're diving into something that affects every single household, our energy bills. It is a paradox many of us have noticed. As California leads the nation in a shift toward clean, renewable energy, our electricity costs just keep climbing. So, why is that? Why do our bills go up even when we're trying to be greener? To help us unpack this complex issue, we have a special guest with us today. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you so much for having me. It's a huge question, and you're right. It's one that doesn't have a simple, straightforward answer.
There are many factors all tangled together. Let's start with the basics then. When we look at our monthly statements and see those numbers ticking up, what's really driving these rising energy costs?
Well, you can think of it as several layers stacked on top of each other. The first and most foundational layer is infrastructure costs. California's power grid is, frankly, old. It was built for a different era, and it requires a massive, multi-billion-dollar investment to bring it into the 21st century. We need it to handle the variable nature of renewable energy, like solar and wind, and just as critically, it needs to be upgraded for wildfire safety. So when you hear about utilities spending billions to replace aging transmission lines or burying power cables underground in high-risk fire zones or adding smart grid systems to better manage power flow, all of that investment shows up directly on customer bills.
It's a necessary modernization, but it comes with a hefty price tag. That makes sense. So, we're essentially paying to rebuild the system for the future. But what about the renewable energy sources themselves? Weren't solar and wind supposed to make power cheaper in the long run?
In theory, yes, and on a long enough timeline, they absolutely will. The cost of generating a kilowatt-hour from a new solar farm or wind turbine is cheaper than ever before. But the problem is the transition period we're in right now. It's incredibly expensive. Utilities are in a tough spot where they have to maintain the old fossil fuel system to keep the lights on reliably, while simultaneously building out the brand new clean energy system. It's like paying for two grids at once. And beyond just the solar panels and wind turbines, you have all the associated costs. To have power when the sun isn't shining or the wind isn't blowing, you need massive battery storage systems. You need backup generation on standby. You need sophisticated technology to constantly balance the grid. All of those components add up, and they add up quickly.
And I imagine the devastating wildfires we've seen in recent years play a significant role in this as well?
A huge role. It's impossible to overstate their impact. After catastrophic wildfires were linked back to utility equipment, companies like PG&E have been under immense pressure and regulatory mandates to drastically improve safety. This involves a lot of different strategies. One you might be familiar with is the public safety power shutoffs, where they proactively de-energize lines in high-risk areas during windy, dry conditions. But beyond that, they are investing billions in fire prevention, things like more aggressive vegetation management around power lines and those infrastructure upgrades we mentioned. The liability costs from past fires and the cost of insurance for these utilities are astronomical, and ultimately, those costs are passed on to us, the ratepayers.
So, it sounds like as customers, we're caught in a pincer movement. We're paying for prevention of future disasters, and we're also paying for the innovation needed for a cleaner future.
That's exactly right. And you can't forget the direct impact of climate change itself, which creates a vicious cycle. We're seeing more frequent and intense heat waves. That extreme heat drives up electricity demand as millions of people turn on their air conditioning all at once, putting immense strain on the grid. At the same time, the ongoing drought has severely limited our hydropower output, which has historically been a cheap and reliable source of power for California. When the reservoirs are low, utilities have to turn to more expensive backup sources, often natural gas, to meet demand, and that drives costs higher for everyone.
And what about policy? We know California is famous for its ambitious climate goals. How much is regulation a part of this story?
It's definitely a major character in the story. California has some of the most ambitious and legally binding climate laws in the world. These policies require utilities to source an ever-increasing percentage of their electricity from renewable sources and to aggressively cut their carbon emissions. While these goals are absolutely necessary to combat climate change, achieving them isn't free. The cost of compliance, which includes things like securing permits for new projects, purchasing carbon credits under the state's cap-and-trade program, and building all the required new infrastructure. All of those costs inevitably add to what customers pay on their bills. This helps explain a frustration I hear from a lot of people.
They say, "I've installed solar panels on my roof. I'm conserving energy. I'm doing my part, but my bill is still going up." It feels counterintuitive.
Right, and that opens up a whole other complicated debate about rate structures. As more and more homeowners adopt rooftop solar, they buy less electricity from the utility. From the utility's perspective, they're losing revenue. However, they still have the massive fixed costs of maintaining the entire grid, the poles, the wires, the transformers, that everyone, including solar users, relies on. To make up for that lost revenue and ensure grid maintenance is funded, utilities have started to adjust their rate structures. This can mean higher fixed monthly charges that you pay no matter how much energy you use, or new fees, specifically for solar users.
It is a very contentious issue because it pits the need to maintain the collective grid against the incentive for individual homeowners to go green. It really is a complicated balancing act, trying to juggle these ambitious climate goals, massive infrastructure needs, and the very real issue of affordability for California families.
Yes, and that hits on the core challenge for the future. How do we fund this clean, reliable, and resilient grid without leaving low-income and middle-class communities behind? We can to have a green transition that is built on the backs of those who can least afford it. There are some promising programs emerging that aim to address this. Things like expanding community solar projects, which allow renters and people in apartments to benefit from solar power. There are also bill credit programs and new efforts to improve energy efficiency in older, less insulated buildings. But scaling these solutions up to meet the statewide need will take real political will and sustained investment.
So, looking ahead, is it even possible for California to stabilize energy prices while staying on its ambitious clean energy path? Or are high costs just the new normal?
I believe it is possible, but it won't happen on its own. It's going to require a powerful combination of technological innovation, smart policy reform, and a better designed energy market. On the technology side, things like next-generation batteries that are cheaper and last longer, the development of localized microgrids that can operate independently, and using artificial intelligence to manage grid demand more efficiently could all help bring costs down. But ultimately, leadership matters. The choices that our policymakers make about how to structure rates, how to allocate state funds, and how to distribute the costs of this transition will be what determines whether this journey feels fair and manageable or disproportionately painful for many Californians.
So, when we open our utility bill, we're not just looking at a financial statement. The story of that bill is really about how we, as a society, decide to share the cost of building our future.
Exactly. The transition to clean energy is not just an environmental mandate. It's one of the biggest financial and social challenges that California has ever faced. How we navigate it will define our state for generations to come.
Thank you so much for breaking down this incredibly complex topic and sharing your insights with us today. In our next episode, we'll continue this conversation by exploring how California's energy and climate future connects to national and global trends. We'll ask, what lessons can the rest of the country, and even the world, learn from the Golden State's ambitious and often challenging journey? Thanks for watching. If you found this discussion helpful, please hit that like button and be sure to subscribe and turn on notifications so you don't miss our next episode. We'll see you then.